now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calogero, and it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by SouthernGourmetSpice.com. If you're looking for the best spices to add to any meal, just check out SouthernGourmetSpice.com. Make sure you tell them Billy C sent you. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by the Title Bout Championship computer game. Get yourself a copy right now by visiting BillyCBoxing.com. And finally, today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet, is available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy right now by visiting Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, or just drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com. It's our post-fight show. Anthony Joshua versus Oleksandr Usyk. And Usyk put on a show. What a great fight. What a great fight. I can't say enough. Let me start off by saying this. You know, Anthony Joshua, nobody loves Anthony Joshua more than me. But no defense. I had the fight close. The official scores 117, 112, 116, 112, and 115, 113, all in favor of Usyk, and he's the new world heavyweight champion. What was on the line was AJ's, all of his titles, actually, the WBO, the IBF, the WBA, and IBO. Congratulations to Usyk. I scored the fight 115, 113 for Usyk. A couple of the close rounds. I thought that AJ landed the more powerful punch, but at the end of the day, Anthony Joshua's weakness, no defense. I mean, granted, he was fighting a very accurate puncher in Usyk, but he let too many shots go in, and he seemed slow to me today. He seemed kind of slow. But what a great performance by Usyk. What a great fight. I mean, it was action-packed from beginning to end. So, I loved it. I loved the fight, that's for sure. So, as far as the rest of the card, well, there was some great fights on that card. Tell you the truth, they're one-sided fights, but let's go. Calum Smith debuted at light heavyweight, devastating second-round knockout over Lenin Castillo. Right hand did the damage. They basically brought him to the hospital. Welcome to the light heavyweight division, Calum Smith. Campbell Hatton, what a robbery. I thought Sonny Martinez beat him. The way I scored it was basically 5 rounds to 1, but the home cooking, 58-57 in favor of Hatton. Terrible decision in my opinion. And Lawrence Oakley improved to 17-0 with 14 knockouts when he stopped Dylan Prazovic in that fight. He was third round knockout with that body shot. But back to the main event. I got to be honest. I did think that AJ was going to win the fight. Credit to Usyk. I mean, what else can you say? I mean, great performance. He used his ring smart. First of all, Anthony Joshua seemed like he could never get anything going in this fight. Usyk came out. What did you think? You think he ripped a page out of Tyson Fury's book when Tyson Fury fought Deontay Wilder in his last fight? Because the truth of the matter is everybody thought that, he would wait till the later rounds and try and, analyze it. His mind is like a computer and all these things. Even as far as referring to him as the crazy Ukrainian genius. But at the end of the day, he started that fight pretty much the way I thought Anthony Joshua should have started the fight. He basically was all over AJ. I mean, AJ couldn't keep him off him. You know what I mean? So that's the way I see it. So I don't know. I'm wondering if people are going to say AJ won the fight. I mean, I know a lot of the Brits. They don't see it sometimes. Maybe I'll get some criticism. Look, I'll give you this much. I scored it the closest than anyone else as far as the judges go. The way I saw it, rounds 1, 2, and 3 all went to Usyk. I gave rounds 4, 5, and 6 to AJ. I gave 7 to Usyk. I gave 8 to AJ. I gave 9 to Usyk. I mean, I thought the fight was close. I gave round 10 to AJ, but the last 2 rounds on my scorecard clearly went to Usyk. What does it do to the heavyweight division? Well, we got Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury coming up next. Did Anthony Joshua just blow the potential biggest fight in the history of boxing with Tyson Fury? Does Usyk fill that role? I mean, why shouldn't he? To be honest with you, why shouldn't he? I think that at the end of the day, the best beats the best. You beat the guy who beat the guy, right? So Usyk shouldn't he be the guy? What does he do to Wilder? Does the height do anything for Wilder, for Usyk against Wilder? It didn't seem to be much of a difference for AJ. But what about Tyson Fury? I don't know, man. It was a tough fight. I'm a little shocked, to be honest with you. I'm a little shocked. Didn't know what else to think. Watching that fight, I'm saying to myself, well, when's AJ going to get it going? Why didn't he towards the second half of the fight? It didn't seem until the last round. It didn't seem that Usyk was hurting Anthony Joshua as much as he was in the early part of the fight. At that point, why didn't Anthony Joshua jump all over him? I mean, that's what he needed to do, I think. So, what else can you say? I'm going to wait and see if we can get Alex Pierpaoli and Daxx Khan to join us to get their thoughts. Waiting for that to happen. But in the meantime, where do you think this happened? I mean, where do you think it goes? We got some people in the chat room. Where do you think the heavyweight division goes now? Usyk really shook it up. There's no question about that. Usyk shook it up. So we'll see what happens in the heavyweight division. But honestly, what can you say about Usyk's performance? I mean, let's be real. The movement, the punches were accurate. He took AJ's best shots. What else can you say? What a game plan. I think that the movement gave AJ all kinds of trouble. I don't think that Tyson Fury can move the way Usyk can. But can anybody in the heavyweight division move like Usyk displayed tonight? I mean, that footwork, to me, I know one of the commentators alluded to it, but to me, that was Lomachenko. That was Lomachenko reinvented. The way he was pivoting and coming back, and even with that cut, and make no mistake, that cut was bothering Usyk. But AJ didn't capitalize on it. At some point in that fight, I guess it was, when was it? It was on my scorecard. It was really the 4th, 5th, and 6th rounds. I mean, that's when AJ should have turned it on, and he didn't. Usyk put on a performance, and Usyk deserved to win the fight. As I'm watching this fight, I'm saying, don't tell me for a minute that they're going to give this fight to Anthony Joshua. Great fight. Wish they were all like that. We're going to add my man Daxx Khan and Alex Pierpaoli. All these are right here. Let's go to them right now. What's up, guys? What'd you think of the fight?
That was a great fight. Better than expected.
Well, you said all along. I mean, I got to give you credit where credit's due. You liked Usyk in this fight, Dax. I mean, you said it multiple times. Why are you saying that it was better than expected?
Because I actually didn't think that Anthony Joshua was going to be able to last the distance, and I didn't think that Anthony Joshua was going to be able to deal with the constant output and the turning of Usyk. I thought that was going to be his downfall.
Well, the foot movement definitely gave AJ trouble. Alex, can you hear us? Are you good? Alex obviously can't hear us right now, Dax, but when he can, and we got to turn down the background because that's a feeding us. So, Alex, are you on?
Now I got you.
All right, good man. What was your thoughts of the fight?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great fight. I thought it was a fun fight. It wasn't huge on blunt force trauma or damage, but it was competitive throughout. I only gave AJ 4 rounds. There was one more that was maybe close, but I thought Usyk boxed beautifully. And I really thought that AJ did have his moments where I actually thought that, he was going to come back into the fight because it definitely looked like he was hurting him.
Hey, Dax, how'd you score the fight?
I had it 116, 112, and more or less the reason why I scored it 116, 112, I really thought it was wider than that, but it was just those rounds where Usyk more or less played it smart, and he didn't try to push his luck and stay inside when Joshua in those middle rounds kind of had like that little bit of a second wind and was coming towards him. And remember, Joshua was coming pretty close with some of those right hands. So, Usyk more or less did exactly why he brought Anatoly Lomachenko into the camp for this fight, and was to just keep Joshua turning and just to be a defensive master.
Well, he was an offensive master too. I mean, to be honest with you, it was a complete performance. But let me just say this. I guess I had it a lot closer than most. I had it 115, 113 for Usyk. Some of the rounds that were extremely close that I scored for AJ, I had to put power. I had to take the power of the punches and put it in to the reasons why I scored it that way. Although Usyk was landing shots, I thought when AJ landed them in those, I thought the critical rounds for AJ was 4, 5, and 6. I thought that he landed the harder punches, and that's why I kind of leaned towards him. But as the fight went on, it seemed that both fighters kind of lost their punching power, at least the way it was affecting each other. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, well, Usyk is not known for his punching power. Usyk is known as a volume puncher. Usyk, for the most part, maybe I know a lot of people out there will kind of disagree, but he's more or less an oversized Lomachenko when he's at his best. Except what people do forget, and I know that they use slightly heavier gloves, is that Oleksandr Usyk took a monster shot from Joe Joyce in the World Series of Boxing. Joe Joyce hits just as, if not harder than Anthony Joshua, in my opinion. And Usyk was able to take that, and he was able to use his feet and survive that until he recovered, is what he did tonight against Joshua. And then the speed experience definitely was a case in this fight that Anthony Joshua just really couldn't see that left hand coming, and it was sneaky. And I forget which round it was, but did you notice? I think it was somewhere around maybe the 6th or the 7th where Joshua smiled, and it was that smile where, okay, you got me, but he also knew that this was going to be a problem for him throughout.
Alex, why didn't, at least in my opinion, maybe you agree or disagree, but why didn't AJ's corner make any adjustments? They didn't seem to know what to do. I mean, there was times when I thought that AJ was going to come out and try and neutralize Usyk, but was it a lack of trying to change the game plan, or was it just Usyk forcing them to do what he wanted?
Yeah, I think it was more Usyk than it was than it was AJ, like a failure for AJ, because it definitely seemed as if the way Usyk was giving him the head movement, he was giving him feints. He really just he was the total package this evening, and I think that, like Dax mentioned, that smile was definitely very telling, because it did show you how Usyk is not a huge power puncher, but he was able to connect multiple times in a row, and that's what got him in trouble. I thought, it's as much as AJ did not do well. I thought he boxed better than he has. I agree with you. I think the game plan seemed a little off. I don't know why he doesn't use his great big size. It was like he gave up too much ground from that opening round, and Usyk was in close and wasn't made to pay for that ground from the beginning. And once that happened, it was over.
Hey, I couldn't help you guys both talking about that smile. Alex, did you start to have memories of Hagler, Leonard?
Yeah.
Remember when we all scored that, we all said, well, Hagler's starting to act like, doing the thing with his hand, starting to smile. I mean, and we're going, this is when he knew he lost the fight, but or was losing. Yeah, I just don't know why there wasn't more adjustment. I agree. Alex and Dax, what's your thoughts? I thought that AJ should have bullied him a little more. I should have, at some point in time, by the time they said to him, you need a knockout after the, the 10th round, that's when he should have just went all out, and use his size, try to bully him, because at times, and it's those same rounds I keep mentioning, at those times, it did seem like AJ was able to corner him a little bit. And when he did land punches, it slowed Usyk down. But when he didn't land the punches, Usyk pretty much hit him at will.
If you look and see in the earlier rounds, which is what I think played a major part into that, is that Usyk kind of surprised Joshua with how hard that he could punch. And not saying that, Usyk is a power puncher, but, you could see the look on Joshua's face. It was a combination between, okay, he has a little more pop in his punch than I expected, and on top of the fact that it's fast. And I think Joshua has come to realize that stamina has been his downfall. Yesterday, actually, I started to lean a little bit more towards Joshua, seeing that he stayed at 240, which was just a couple pounds heavier than I think the Ruiz rematch, and around the same as it was for the Pulev fight. So I was saying to myself, okay, Joshua, very much like Lennox Lewis used to be, or even Vladimir Klitschko, whenever they were around that 240 to 245 pound mark, they were totally different fighters than they were even at 246, 247 pounds. But again, when you have somebody like Usyk, that's continuously turning you and turning you and turning you, and you can't set your feet, and you're constantly getting punched. It's just very frustrating, and it doesn't give you time to think. In the gym, that's one of the things that I always try and teach the younger fighters is something. You don't have to let go of power. Just let go of the 1, 2, 3, and then turn to the side. So this way, by the time they are facing you, before they get their hands up and their feet set, you're already letting your hands go, and then you're turning again. And that really wears a fighter out mentally, which is why Lomachenko has always been so great and so successful with it, and a lot of other fighters like Whitaker. Now Whitaker, remember, with all the awkward angles, and he would turn his opponents consistently, even against guys that were bigger, stronger punchers. It made it so difficult for them.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, the basic rule you tell fighters: if he hits you once, hit him twice, and that's exactly what Usyk did. Alex, there's a rematch clause. They talked a lot about the rematch clause for this fight. Obviously, we're going to see these two fight again. Are we going to see a different fight?
I think it would be very difficult for AJ. I really was very curious as to what exactly happened at the end, because there's no question Joshua seemed the body language, he was clearly defeated. Something they had mentioned was about the eye. Now, I wonder if we're going to find out that swelling, there was some internal damage. I don't know. This is a big defeat for him. I was a little surprised that he didn't stay and at least talk to the DAZN camera people with a post-fight interview.
I think he was exhausted.
It could very well be.
All signs, that's what showed me. I mean, yeah, the eye, but he was sticking his tongue out 2 seconds before. And you know what? Nothing for nothing. But that referee could have called that a knockdown. Those ropes were clearly keeping him up. He was leaning way back on those ropes. I'm surprised they didn't force him to come off those ropes, Dax. What do you think?
In that final round, I think if that round would have went 15 more seconds, I think Usyk would have actually knocked him out. Not like Andy Ruiz Jr. either. I think Usyk would have literally knocked him out. What I found interesting about this fight, and I'm curious to get your guys' opinions, is that when you look at this, the referee for this fight has never refereed a world title fight before. Howard Foster, who's a former ref and one of the judges, his biggest assignment was Parker versus Chisora. Victor Festich, who's never refereed a world title fight, was one of the judges. Steve Weisfeld was actually the only judge involved and the only official involved in this entire fight that had any credentials, considering it was such a mega event. Did you find that strange at all?
Well, you know what I could say? Kudos to them because they all had the scores right. You know, the referee did a great job. There was one questionable call. So, you know what? Everybody deserves a chance, and I thought they came through okay, in my opinion. Alice, your thoughts?
I agree, and I think that was one of the things that was interesting about it was that it was a very clean heavyweight fight. I don't think there was a single clinch, or if there was maybe one or two.
Wait a minute. That's an interesting point because there was a lot of talk about the weigh-in and how smooth it went and how much sportsmanship there was, and it was still entertaining and people loved it. And it really made the United States boxing scene look like a bunch of clowns because there's always pushing and fighting and that whole bullshit stuff that goes on here in the States. It simply doesn't happen in England. I mean, Marty Mulcahy put a post up on Twitter that I happen to have seen, and he was 100% correct. You know, how refreshing it was to see sportsmanship at a weigh-in. I mean, that sells too. What do you guys think?
Oh, absolutely. Grown-ups. And I think one of the pictures was great because you saw one fighter giving a front double biceps, and the one fighter was looking like this, and then they did it. The other guy obliged him. So, I mean, it was like, yeah. They both want you to watch this event and see us show the best. And then at the end, we'll congratulate each other no matter what happens. And I think that was the thing, like Dax was saying, was that I think the other thing about this Usyk demonstrated was you could give crazy amounts of movement without stinking it out and without circling and running all night. He basically moved all night long, but he moved left and right. But he was attacking.
Right.
Absolutely.
He was the definition of the sweet science. Absolutely. He was hitting and not getting hit, but he was still in position to inflict damage upon his opponent. End the story. This is what the sweet science was. He displayed sweet science tonight. You know, and Anthony Joshua was right in front of him but couldn't hit him. Occasionally he landed some shots. You know, this is what I get in arguments all the time when people say, oh, Floyd Mayweather was a sweet science. No, watch Floyd's fight. Never was he doing that. He was out of the way. And yes, you couldn't hit him. And you know, he's a phenomenal fighter, all those things. But what we saw tonight was the definition of the sweet science.
Well, to stand there that close against somebody like an Anthony Joshua who has so much power, and to be that close, knowing a slight mistake can end your night. So you have to be on point no matter what. And I do think, and I kind of agree with you, that the fact that outside Steve Weisfeld, who I always think does, I'd say 80% of the time, a good job, the fact that these other officials really haven't been on this high level with the amount of title fights that they've officiated, been involved in, or refereed, it might have been what made this a better fight, considering that they're not so used to going and pleasing the promoter so much and making the fans happy so much and getting themselves involved in the media like an Adelaide Bird type would be. Now, another question I have: did anybody catch the comments by Oleksandr Usyk that he made about 2 weeks ago that said, if I defeat Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury defeats Deontay Wilder like I think he will, there is no question that Tyson Fury is the best heavyweight in the world. And more or less, he kind of admitted that if him and Tyson Fury get into the ring together, due to the size difference and due to the mobility of Tyson Fury, that he doesn't really think that he'd be able to do the same to Tyson Fury as he would to Anthony Joshua.
Well, wait a minute. It's an interesting, because that's the next thing I was going to ask you guys. You know, what happens to the heavyweight division now? I was fumbling and bumbling in the beginning of the show, but the truth of the matter is that I don't know listen, we all say, at least you guys say, that Tyson Fury's great in terms of boxing ability. I agree, but let's make no mistake, he does not have the agility that Usyk has, and the reason is Usyk is small, a little smaller. But I think listen, it's a fight I want to see. I mean, listen, if Usyk is being compared to Lomachenko, then Usyk is going to figure out a way to beat Tyson Fury too. I think Usyk proved tonight that he may be the best heavyweight out there.
I think with the fact that he is so mobile would prevent Tyson Fury from doing what he does best and use that Kronk style of mauling his opponents and working on the inside, because he wouldn't be able to pin them down. Now, I think that Anthony Joshua, if we remember, or I don't know how much a lot of people pay attention, there was almost a month ago where he actually said he wanted to prove he can outbox Usyk. Did anybody remember reading those articles?
I do remember hearing comment of that, and I think that could explain some of his strategy tonight, where he almost like made himself smaller, and I think that was a mistake, at least in the early.
Oh, AJ, yeah. He looks smaller, even though he's 20 pounds heavier.
Well, he fought sort of crouched down,
but he doesn't know how to fight like that.
Well, yeah, and to me, it was almost like he was giving. He wanted to give a different look to Usyk to try to box him differently, and I thought, wow, that I wouldn't have gone that way. To me, I want to see him use that size and not let Usyk get in close enough. Because if you have a baseball bat, which he does, you have to keep the guy outside so you can use it. You can't use a baseball bat in here. And that's the thing about Joshua's punches. It's like great big baseball Louisville Slugger swings, you know. Those aren't as effective in close. And I thought that the dimensions of the fight favored Usyk from the very opening bell. He never gave up that ground. And I think you're right that would be interesting to see against Fury. I absolutely want to see it. I hope, quite honestly, Dax, I hope you're wrong. I hope, even if he does think that Fury would have advantage, I hope he wants to fight him. But I do think that, oh my God, it'd be an ugly fight, and that hopefully the referee would be very important in that one, because Fury would try to maul him to reduce that movement, because you're right, Billy C, that movement, Fury is not used to that. And
no way.
Would bedevil him. So I agree. I think Usyk he is definitely the most talented right now.
I think he fights Tyson Fury. I think in his face, just like he was in AJ's face, Tyson Fury is too big and won't be able to land punches effectively. And Tyson Fury doesn't have the punching power that AJ has. I don't know. I don't see him beating. I don't see Deontay Wilder beating Usyk either. So now all of a sudden he beats in my opinion, he beat the best heavyweight in AJ seemingly easily. And I say to myself now, I don't know. I think he's the best heavyweight out there right now. Somebody's going to have to beat him to shut me up.
This was like a grand slam. He went from number 10 ranked heavyweight to number 1.
No doubt.
Who has Usyk fought this year other than Anthony Joshua?
Yeah, but that
doesn't matter.
No, I'm asking.
It doesn't matter. No,
I'm
but it
asking for
doesn't
a
matter.
reason.
It doesn't matter because we could say the same thing for the other two guys.
No, you're getting it wrong. I'm asking you for a reason.
Well, then finish the sentence.
I don't remember if he's fought anybody else this year. Has he or has he
I
not?
don't think so.
Oh!
Bring him up.
In the last
No,
year.
I think it's been.
No, he. Wait a minute. Didn't he? Yes, I think he did in the last year.
Witherspoon was last,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and because he fought 2 fights at heavyweight, right?
Or Chisora might have been his last. And the only reason why I'm asking is because I was putting this little list together earlier in the year, and I'm looking at my files back in June. I'm looking at the resume of Usyk. Back when Usyk, this was his what fight? This was his 19th fight.
19th fight, yeah.
Okay, so in June, when Usyk was 18-0 with 13 stoppages, the combined resume of all his opponents put together was 425, 76, and 9 with 306 knockouts. Now you add Anthony Joshua's resume onto that, and it's pretty hard to sit there and say, not only does he. Would you have to consider him the best heavyweight in the sport? Usyk, due to the amount of fighters he has that are unbeaten and the quality level, Usyk right now has a pretty good claim at being the pound-for-pound best fighter in the sport, period.
Yeah. Oh, I think that you could definitely make that case. Plus, he just won the greatest prize in sports.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're on top of that. And we always argue on here, Alex, you know that all of us always sit there and say, well, we don't like to include the heavyweights. But, I mean, when you take what Usyk did at cruiserweight and then now what he did at heavyweight, you have to kind of include him and consider him. He might just be the best fighter in the sport, period, pound for pound. Do you think he has a fair claim at that, Bill?
I definitely do, because I think he's clearly, I said it in the chat room here, I think he's clearly top 2. You can make an argument. I mean, look, who's the top 3 pound for pound? It's got to be.
I had Canelo, and then I had Inoue, and then I had Usyk.
Well, what I'm saying is the top 3, and I think you could mix and match them right now, has to be Canelo, Usyk, and I still put Lomachenko in there.
Yeah, I put Lomachenko at probably around 4, I believe. I'd have to look at the last list that I made, but definitely I think after this fight that Usyk is my number 2 in the world, and depending on how this fight plays out with well, I'm sorry, I should say that right now I believe that Usyk is number 1 in the world, and depending on how the Canelo Plant fight plays out would decide whether or not Canelo takes that spot back.
Right. Yeah, I would agree, and I would just want to say that I think I agree with Dax that it's the three-headed monster in terms of the pound for pound would be Canelo, Inoue, and Usyk, and I think that like Dax said that even though I don't like to put heavyweights in my pound for pound because Usyk didn't start at a heavyweight. That's a different case.
I agree. I don't like putting him in pound for pound either. But
the fact that he started as a cruiserweight.
That's why when he's in the discussion, I agree with you 100%. I've said this for the last decade that I never put a heavyweight because pound for pound rankings were made for every division other than heavyweight. Because if you're the heavyweight champion, you are the top dog. You know, guys that have been heavyweight champions that go in that pound for pound list are far and few in between. Roy Jones Jr. has to be in that discussion because, you know, he moved up. Now Usyk, you know, right. David Haye, if you say he was a pound for pound, I don't. But he did go up from cruiserweight up into that division. But
well, toe for toe, he's better than anybody.
Who?
Toe for toe.
Yeah, okay, I know the toe. The toe. I got it. Well. Listen, we could drop down to 147, and you know, there's guys in there with a lot of excuses too that haven't fought. I mean, isn't there a guy from Florida that was supposed to be so good? I mean, when was the last time he fought?
Well, and the other thing I was going to say was that the Chisora fight, Dax, was Halloween 2020. So, yeah, it had been a long time since he was in the ring as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, Dax, you're right. All right, let's talk about a couple of the undercard fights. Specifically.
One other thing that actually adds to that, I'm sorry, just to the Usyk's claim for being pound for pound best is, remember, Usyk has actually holds the record in boxing for one, claiming a legitimate world title at cruiserweight in the least amount of fights of any fighter in history. Usyk also holds the record for being the undisputed lineal heavyweight champion in the 4-belt era with the least amount of fights in history. He did that in 15 fights, and Teofimo Lopez did it in 16 fights, or you could say 17 fights, but Teofimo Lopez collected all those belts from Lomachenko, and Usyk, collected all his one by one, and then now we have Usyk as the unified heavyweight champion of the world. So there's just so many things that he's accomplished in under 20 fights that I don't think we've ever seen anybody else doing under 20 fights outside of Lomachenko.
I love the nickname Crazy Ukrainian Genius.
He looks like a madman. Come on, imagine walking down the street. Imagine knocking on your door and saying, Mr. Calogero, I'm here to pick your daughter up for a date.
Get the fuck out of here. I'll shoot him. But the thing is simple. You got Wile E. Coyote, super genius. But now we've done better. Now we have the Crazy Ukrainian Genius, and I love it. All right, on the undercard, Campbell Hatton, Ricky Hatton's son. All right, so we're in the chat room and we got a cat in here. Oh, the American fights usually have robberies and stuff. And I said, hey, listen, first of all, nobody loves the English fight scene more than me. I wish we were doing this show from England right now. I've been saying it for 10 years. But tonight, we saw a robbery. Campbell Hatton against Sonny Martinez.
Oh, yes.
I had 5 rounds to 1 in that fight. I mean, I had Sonny Martinez beating the shit out of Ricky. I mean, not Ricky Hatton, but Campbell Hatton. I mean, it wasn't a close fight. When I heard the scores, I was just like, oh, man. And even the announcing team was like, yeah, that's home cooking. 58-57 for Hatton. What's your guys' thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate what's happening with Hatton is that what this development phase that normally a fighter at this stage would be happening far away from the bright lights that he's getting. This hyper focus is not helping him, and it created a situation where corruption was the only way to keep him undefeated. And that's what we saw tonight. And that was just disgusting because everyone saw what they saw. I like the way Roy Jones explained it because it did show you that if you're a prize fighter, you have to get over that right away because that's what could happen. This sport is crooked. If you take away the brain damage and the blood, it's just like figure skating. It comes
or collecting comic books. Hey, listen, Dak.
That's nasty.
That's tough. I know. I love all the photos you text me. They're great.
We know how tough it is to be the son of a legend or
But that's what I was going to say is this. You know better than anyone. The bottom line is that this kid had virtually no amateur.
That's
and so the way you bring look, I've been in the boxing business a long time, and the way you bring up a kid like that doesn't have the pedigree or experience of a brilliant amateur career is you got to carefully pick your opponents, and you got to hand feed them these guys that don't have a chance. They picked the wrong guy tonight, and they tried to give this kid 1 week's notice, 6 days notice or whatever the case is. But it exposed Campbell Hatton. He has no defense. He took a lot of shots. And then what are they saying on the broadcast? He's got a good chin. Yeah, you don't want to say he's got a good chin in his 4th professional fight. That's telling you he doesn't know how to defend himself.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, right?
Yeah. My point is that there's a lot of these fights. We'll use Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., for example, because, like you said, you hand feed them opponents early on. Is what they did with Junior in Mexico when he was 15 years old. Now, Junior never had the desire to be a fighter. He was more or less kind of thrust into it, which is why he fell off, and he is where he is now, especially because he has money. Now, Campbell, though, he wanted to be a fighter, and due to that limited amateur experience, and because Ricky is such a big name over there, they're fast-tracking him to something where he's going to end up getting himself hurt. It was kind of sad to see in there that this kid getting hit like that. This is something that I have fighters in the gym that have only been there 2-3 months, and in their second or third time that, they're in there and they, they're working the mitts. And the first time they go in there and spar against another fighter that's only been in there, a couple months, and I'm talking light sparring, just moving around, they show better ring knowledge than what Campbell Hatton has. And they keep saying, all this development is back over in the gym. But meanwhile, you have him in front of 65,000 people here. It's like, are you okay? I understand you want to fast track him. That'd be great if he had some experience. But this kid literally, and I don't mean to be mean, but he does have no boxing skill whatsoever. He's not a Joey Spencer or something like that here where, they're matching him up against the right guys, but he also has a solid amateur career, and he has some proven ability to go in there and hang in with the bigger, stronger guys. And considering, too, imagine if Sonny had a little bit of power.
Listen. Oh no! If Sonny had a little, he did have enough power to hurt Hatton, but
yeah, but he doesn't have a knockout. And in that sixth round, you could have really made a strong case for that being, waved off.
Listen, Chavez. I understand your analogies, okay, but here's the difference. Chavez was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he got hand fed stuff. The comparison I look at would be a Canelo. Canelo follows the path that they should be putting Campbell Hatton on. If you look at his resume, he didn't have a great amateur career either. He turned pro, and they built his record up and built up his experience on the pro level with carefully selected opposition. And I don't think that that's been the case with Hatton. He's 4-0 now with no knockouts. He's kind of struggled in every fight. I mean, yeah, he ran out of gas. Oh, they said he's not conditioned. He's fighting 4-round fights. This is, I believe this was the first 6-round fight. Yeah, and even Ricky Hatton said, well, tonight if he takes his time, this guy is perfect for a knockout. And it's like, yeah, no, he wasn't perfect for a knockout. So I don't know. I think they have to reboot. I think they're capitalizing on Ricky Hatton's name too much. They should go under the radar with Campbell Hatton, not in the bright lights, not on 65, 70,000 live audience. Put him on that stage. I think it should have been the other way around. In the small clubs, fighting. I hate to say it, but fighting club fighter type guys, build up his record, get some experience, and go from there. The big stage may be great for the name, but it's certainly not good for his career. What do you guys think?
No, that's why I used Chavez as an example over Canelo, because Canelo, there was no expectations for Canelo. Canelo was literally unknown. His brother was, he had brothers and other people in his family that were journeymen, but not a legend like, Chavez Sr. But Junior didn't have much of an amateur background. Now, Campbell Hatton, all of a sudden, if it was up to them, they would have had him in there tonight fighting for a world title, simply because he's Campbell Hatton. And that's why I don't understand, considering Ricky himself, towards the tail end of his career, did not go out the way he wanted to. I mean, his last 2 fights were one-sided losses, and you would have thought that, leave me bring my son along a little bit better, and it almost, and I'm not saying he is, but it's almost as if though they're just automatically assuming because Campbell's last name is Hatton, he can go in there and stand toe-to-toe, and he can keep the pace that his father used to keep when his father was at 140 pounds and his father was in his early 20s. And it's just not having, some guys are born with that natural ability. Campbell just doesn't seem to be born with the same ability as his father.
No doubt. Alex, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that they're certainly not doing him any favors with everything that we've just discussed. I think, and because of the father-son thing, you hope that it's not that Ricky's pushing him or something. You hope that the kid wants this, but I don't know. Tonight, this was embarrassing. I can't imagine he wanted that. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. If I was him, the next, listen to that. I don't know. I agree that I wouldn't want to be in the big spotlight, for some of these developmental fights. And that's basically what this was tonight. That's the stage he's at.
Do you think Ricky might have been a little bit saying stuff to the cameras in terms of, oh, I think he'll get a knockout tonight? Because I remember them showing him several times sitting in the arena by himself.
I think he believed it. I think they're trying to calculate his career, and they made an error tonight. But in the cruiserweight division, Lawrence Oakley destroyed Dylan Prazovic tonight.
That's oof. That body shot was brutal.
Yeah, it was brutal, but the first punch set it up. But how does he fare in the cruiserweight division? I mean, he seemed a little slow. He seems huge. Tonight, the two fighters that seemed slow to me was Oakley and AJ. They just seemed slow. Their hand speed just wasn't there. Not that Oakley was a speed demon, but AJ, I thought, threw faster punches. What do you guys think between those two guys with their hand speed tonight?
Oakley, I think makes up for the lack of speed with the power. So I think that was on display tonight. But I think he is still one of the best cruiserweights. But I'm not sure what that will mean. We'll have to see. But now what? 17-0, 14 KOs. So
it still seems that they're talking about skipping over the new division. They're talking about Oakley going from the cruiserweight division to the heavyweight division. There is a new division now in between, correct?
He's not much smaller than Anthony Joshua. How hard do you think it is for him? Yeah, how hard do you think it is for him to get down to under 200 pounds? He's 6'5". I believe he has about an 80-inch reach. So I really think he's struggling to make that, which could be a reason why he looks so slow. I mean, I've been a fan of his ever since he fought Yves Nambu for the European Cruiserweight title, and he's steadily increased his opposition since. I think before he won the title, he actually faced 2 or 3 unbeaten opponents in a row. So it's not as though they're looking to give him soft touches and not develop him. I would like to see him maybe go in there against Briedis. I do think that his size advantage would make it more of a fair fight. And if he even lost to Briedis, I don't think that would really hurt him much. And then he can make that jump up to heavyweight.
Yeah, but I think he should consider.
And then as a heavyweight, because he's the WBO champion, he would be able to call out Oleksandr Usyk right away.
But I think that he should try to take over the bridgeweight division, because I don't see him in the mix of heavyweights. Usyk and AJ and Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder and Derek Chisora, the top heavyweights. I don't see him posing a threat to them. What do you think so, Alex?
I think it's possible. I think that's one of the things that I remember a lot of people talking about it when Roy Jones stepped up to fight John Ruiz. If you're over 168 pounds, say from 175 and up, you can take a man out with one shot if you land it the right way. So I do think that, and I think tonight was a good example that, as for all the talk about the size difference, really didn't matter much. Now, granted, it's going to be a much bigger gulf when and if Usyk fights Fury. But in terms, like you're saying, with Oakley, maybe he is better suited at the Andrew Cuomo bridgeweight.
I'm not saying that he's going to take over the heavyweight division, whichever. All I'm saying is that I just think that under 200 pounds is really hurting him.
You guys keep it going. I'll be right back.
But yeah, I do think that I don't know. To me, and Dax, this was something I was very curious to get your thoughts on. Was in terms of the comparison. I'm sure that once Bill gets back at some point, we will get to the Canelo presser. But I do think that the thing that was interesting about that was Dana White taking all those pot shots. He sounded, I don't know if you heard him. He sounded a lot like Fox News, where he took his chance to just kickboxing when it was down for allowing the two fighters not having a promoter between them.
Well, Dana White right now is feeling kind of stupid for opening his mouth about anything, considering what just took place with John Jones after being inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. I mean, John Jones just got arrested, so who are you to criticize anybody? This is one of the best fighters of all time. But in terms of what took place at that press release, that was all Caleb Plant. And what amazes me is that Caleb Plant, after he called Canelo, and that's the funny part is first he called him a bitch. He told him to suck his dick. He called him a cheat. He called Eddie Reynoso a fat fuck. And he calls him a motherfucker. Now, Canelo was fine with everything else. Now, Canelo's starting to learn some English, but Canelo doesn't quite translate it all that well. You can say whatever you want about me, but don't you ever say anything about my mother, and which is what caused that push. The motherfucker. So I don't know what Canelo in his mind is sitting there, so you're going to do what to my mother? And how the rest of this plays out, I'm not really sure. Now, let me ask you this. I do believe that Caleb Plant had to talk himself up. I don't believe that Caleb Plant is really as secure and confident as Caleb Plant would like everybody else to believe.
Oh, because I think that's what's amazing about it is that it's like he's already lost round one. He lands a grazing shot and gets caught twice and cut in what, a fraction of a second? That was amazing.
And now we have been to, this is what the thing is I've argued with a lot of people on social media about where, you don't know the dog that Caleb Plant has in him. You don't know. And then Canelo's only beating this one. Canelo's only beating this guy. And when they were past their best, and he lost the Mayweather fight, which people still bring up. He should have lost the fight to Erislandy Lara. In my opinion, he lost the first Triple G fight or the second Triple G fight, and on and on and on. And Caleb Plant has never lost against anybody else. And we would have these debates on the show, but ever since we have been, I've covered 4 Canelo fights in person, but I'm talking about when you're there in his biggest fights, like you guys with the Kovalev and Canelo, and like me and Billy with Danny Jacobs and Canelo, when you're there and you actually see how good he really is in person compared to TV. On TV, it doesn't do justice in terms of exactly how fast, how strong, how subtle Canelo is in his movements. Am I right or wrong on that, or am I overhyping it?
Oh, yeah. I think he's definitely arguably the best there is right now.
And the level of his opposition proves it. You know what I mean? But all right, I wanted to talk to you guys about a couple other things. I do have an email in the next show that I'm going to read. I'm not going to get into it now, but just want to make sure that Alex, the other Alex Thompson, knows that I'm going to read his email. He sent me an interesting email about the Ali documentary by Ken Burns. The documentary, but in any event, what I wanted to talk about was 2 things. One, Manny Pacquiao says he's open to a rematch with Ugas. My opinion is Manny Pacquiao should retire and focus on the presidency of his country. What do you guys think?
I agree.
I thought I heard him announce. I was pretty sure within the last 2 days, I heard Manny Pacquiao say he's officially retired and he has no plans on coming back, and he is going to focus on the presidency.
I haven't heard that. Maybe I missed that. Did you hear that, Alex?
I think he is running for president. I don't know about boxing, but he definitely is running for president.
Okay, so now the second thing. Well, I'm going to skip over that for a second, but the PBC fighters, we've been critical of them for not fighting outside the PBC. But the one thing that the PBC fighters seem to all do is get in trouble. Jamal Charlo, a couple of weeks ago, was arrested on robbery charges after his credit card was declined with a waitress. I mean, I don't know what's transpired after that, but the bottom line is, how come these fighters can't seem to stay out of trouble?
It's not like it used to be, Bill, and you should know this. in all the years that I've been around gyms, and anybody who's watching, who's whether or not they're a coach or they're a fighter who's been around gyms before before 2000, I should say, we don't have a lot of the mentors that we used to that sit there and talk to fighters and tell fighters stuff that they need to hear. And even after they turn pro, that they're sitting there and they're looking out for these fighters, and they're telling these fighters, and they're constantly in their ear about whether or not who to stay away from, whether or not they should or should not do certain things, whether or not this is bad for their image, or as you guys have stated earlier in the show, how refreshing it was to see how Usyk and Joshua behaved leading up to the fight. They were like gentlemen. They both behaved like we would want world champions to behave by not going around with all these antics. Except a lot of these PBC fighters remember their age and the fact that they grew up in this social media era. So this is more or less acceptable behavior. And so in their minds, it shouldn't. I'm not excusing that, but in their minds, they've done nothing wrong because this is acceptable. And because I'm a world champion, I can go around and do whatever I want. Adrian Broner just turned down 2 7-figure paydays to fight Conor Benn because it's about billions.
Well, they're delusional, and it's a shame because the PBC, everybody touted the PBC when they hit the scene that they were going to save boxing, and in my opinion, it's the total opposite. And speaking of total opposite, there's a lot of rumor going around that there's going to be a Oscar De La Hoya Floyd Mayweather Jr. rematch, the Oscar De La Hoya Floyd Mayweather Jr. 2. Oscar apparently has offered Floyd $100 million to fight, Floyd. Floyd says that he's willing to fight if Oscar really has the money. What do you guys think?
I think if it's like the Tyson Roy Jones thing, it could be fun. But
but Oscar is hell bent on fighting.
I don't want that. No, I don't want them real fight. No. I thought that was disgusting. The Holyfield thing, that whole card. I
think that showed people you better watch out who you're fighting. Evander Holyfield. It was pathetic, and of all people, and his legacy of what he listen. I'll be honest, I was never a big Evander Holyfield fan, but the one thing I always said about Holyfield, I've never witnessed a guy with the recuperative powers of Evander Holyfield. I mean, that George Foreman fight, I will never forget till I take my last breath of how beaten Evander was and the time it took for the cheeseburger-eating guy to cross over that ring and George Foreman to just plot across the ring, Evander recuperated. And I was amazed at that. He didn't show any of that in the fight a couple weeks ago, and it was sad. But Oscar De La Hoya and Floyd Mayweather, is it a little closer? I mean, Floyd still is got, what, almost a decade on him in terms of age?
And in terms of mileage, Floyd has never – a gambling addiction takes a lot less physical toll than drugs and alcohol. So, I think Floyd would spank the shit out of him. So, maybe the fact that Oscar's still trying to get a real fight should be reason enough not to let him.
Well, the funny thing about the Holyfield and De La Hoya, the Holyfield situation was De La Hoya was supposed to fight Vitor Belfort. They were supposed to fight at 185 pounds. And I forget, it was a very short amount of time. I think less than a week that De La Hoya pulled out. So Belfort fights Holyfield at over 200 pounds or close to 200 pounds. I always sat there and wondered, really, did De La Hoya really have any intention of fighting Vitor Belfort, considering in that short amount of time, Belfort wouldn't have been able to lose all that weight. That's a lot of weight, 20 pounds to lose heading into that. And Evander Holyfield, being the warrior that he is, of course, he's going to say yes. It doesn't matter if Evander was 105, he's going to say yes. in terms of Oscar De La Hoya fighting anybody, I think Oscar De La Hoya just got to the point to where he just wants attention. Just stick to being a promoter and just step behind the scenes, because in the last year he's called Canelo out 3 times for a legitimate fight.
Well, he
It's
lost.
crazy. I mean, why not? He should just, stick to being an influencer. Just be on Twitter.
Well,
when that whole thing with his COVID, I don't know if you've ever seen that meme, but there's a meme of this guy with no shirt on, and he has like headphones that he has like close to his nostrils, and it says something like, "I'm sorry, I called in. I'm in the hospital." He's faking it, and that's sort of what I thought.
When I saw that photo of him in the hospital, I said, somehow I don't think that's a hospital,
Because there were so many rumors that they'd only sold a handful of tickets, and then it's like, you know what? Oh my God!
Oh, he was hospitalized.
Sick. Supposedly he was in the hospital. One of the I think the Instagram post looked like he was in a hospital bed, and then the recovered one, he was like sitting on the edge of the hotel.
Yeah, was he in the hospital bed, or was he just in the ER?
Yeah, well,
there's a big difference between being in the ER and being in the hospital.
It reminded me of Keith Thurman. I really did have a car accident. I mean, he was whatever. But interesting stuff. We got to witness a great fight tonight. And listen, guys, I appreciate you coming on. I got to refresh my drink. And I look forward to the next post fight, which is going to be next week, I think. Don't we have another big fight?
The 10th we have Deontay Wilder and.
Oh wait, I heard Deontay Wilder is for
and Tyson Fury 3. So we're gonna have that fight, and then hopefully the winner of that fight will actually meet with Oleksandr Usyk. Just one last thing, just before we.
No, wait. Before you say that. That's not going to happen. They're all going to want to fight AJ now. AJ is going to be the most popular guy they all want to fight. Nobody's going to want to fight Usyk. They're not going to want to fight Usyk. We're going to see people duck Usyk now. Usyk made a mistake tonight. He looked too good. Now he's going to be ducked. You watch.
You'll never convince me that AJ or Wilder, and I said it on the show many times, and a matter of fact, I'm going to post it on the Facebook page where I found it, because Spectrum News, Spectrum now actually has a YouTube channel, and I just happened to be scrolling through there and looking at old video footage where I had said on there that Joshua and Wilder are going to be sorry if they don't make their mega fight, because one of them is going to end up losing, and if one of them doesn't lose, they're both going to end up losing, and the fight's going to be worth a fraction of what it was, even if it does happen. And we already know what took place. Joshua lost, then Wilder lost. Now Joshua's lost twice. If Wilder loses twice, then they're going to want to fight. But when they were both undefeated, there is no way you can convince me that either one of those guys ever wanted anything to do with each other, or else they made that fight happen. And I said that on the show. I said, I don't care. Make a rematch. Take the short. And if me and Alex would say, me and Alex are champions, okay, I'll take the short end of the money this time, Alex, so we can make the fight happen. We'll make it happen up where you live this time. Next time for the rematch, you take the short end of the money, and we'll have it where I live. And this way, you know what? In the end, business-wise, no matter what the result is, that we're both going to walk away with a fortune. Now, that fight will be worth money, but you know what? That fight would be an undercard fight. It's not going to be a main event fight anymore.
Alex, I advise you not to respond to that. We're in contract negotiations with Daxx Khan, and we're not going to accept that deal. So, what I think, and the bottom line is that...
The truth of the matter is, looking at Alex Pierpaoli, he's half the man he used to be, and I actually believe that De La Hoya would have to lose 20 pounds to get in the ring with Alex.
Well, listen, the problem with Alex is all those cats in the shop, man. He's got 47 cats in there. He's the cat man. All right? You've heard of Catwoman. He's the cat man. But listen, the bottom...
Yeah, they want to eat.
Deontay, don't fuck around with a cat when it's time for dinner, man. They'll be like, look, yeah, I know. But the truth of the matter is that Deontay Wilder's going to end up being the odd man out, because AJ Deontay is too risky. But AJ Tyson Fury is still going to be a money fight, because not only are people going to want to see it here in the States, it's going to still be humongous in England. AJ's lost tonight to Usyk, and even if he loses again, a fight with Tyson Fury will still generate tons of money. We all know that. But Deontay Wilder will be the odd man out. The only way that Deontay Wilder can stay in the picture is should he beat Tyson Fury, and that's not going to happen.
Right.
Deontay Wilder is cashing out, and we'll probably see him ride off into the sunset the way Clint Eastwood does in all his westerns. But that's just my opinion.
Well, I tell you, I would not be shocked if we don't see all that much of Anthony Joshua. He looked pretty defeated tonight.
But they love him. He's a draw.
Yes, he definitely is. And that atmosphere was tremendous. I would have loved to be there. I did want to say that
what did you want to say? Meow, 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 meow.
Look, Pietro looks like Pietro's about to slap you upside the head.
Oh, he's like, dude, where's the meal?
He's like, come on, man.
I was promised the meal.
This is my schedule. You're off my schedule.
I always ask, the first thing I ever asked on the show about Anthony Joshua is, will Anthony Joshua in the long run turn out to be more Frank Bruno or more Lennox?
I said it. I said it in the chat room. If you go back and look at it, I said I made the exact analogy, Dax. And unfortunately, as much as I love AJ, I hate to say it, but it looks like
I also said and you laughed at me, I also said in the post
I laugh all the time.
to Calm fight, and you can pull that up, I said Anthony Joshua looked exhausted in the 5th round. The first time he steps in the ring with somebody who he can't hurt and keep down and keeps coming at him, Anthony Joshua's going to lose. You told me I was crazy. You went on a rant about something that I have no idea to this day. And what happened, the very first time that Anthony Joshua couldn't keep somebody down, what happened? He got stopped.
But you're crazy no matter what. It doesn't matter about that. I mean, boxing, yeah, come on.
You know, I was not crazy until the night that Carl Froch and Jermaine Taylor fought at Foxwoods, and this freaking little Italian guy with a mustache was walking up to me.
Somebody stole my seat.
Who's your favorite heavyweight? Lennox Lewis. Oh, he's garbage.
Oh, yeah. Well, we both, here we are. We should be ringside, and our listeners were sitting ringside, and we had to sit in friggin' 10 rows back. Alex, I know you had one last comment.
Oh, so what I was going to mention was that.
Thank you for your comment, Alex. We're moving on. No, go ahead.
I just was a little surprised about just the production value of DAZN.
You're right.
Of all, the squeamishness of yes, it was a frightening knockout, the Calum Smith knockout. But this is a combat sport network. They go to the sky cam out of they're afraid to show us.
I know.
I was a little surprised at that. Not that I want it. Well, you know me, so maybe
you love that. You love that.
Believe me, yeah.
You wanted to see replays of the knees.
I want, car accident cam.
I know.
No, but I think that there's definitely somewhere the way that behavior was very odd. And then the other thing that was even weirder was there was no unofficial scorecard. There was no punch stat.
Roy Jones Jr., who
that's all they had. That was the only and who is it? Darren Barker that's there also?
I don't know.
Darren Barker was there. The other unusual thing is that the referee scored the Campbell Hatton fight.
No, that's not unusual. That's not. No, it's not. That's the way they do it in England. But I tell you. It's Roy Jones Jr. reminded me of Slit Mahoney of the Dead End Kids, on the Bowery Boys. I mean, he was murdering the English language worse than I've ever done.
What I liked about Roy Jones Jr. when they talked about Deontay Wilder was, it might have been whether it was tonight or it was on another show, he talks about how Deontay Wilder's power, where Deontay Wilder, you might have to say he should be number 2 in the division for as long as he dominated the division. He was knocking everybody out, but I don't really like him.
Yeah, no, I know. He said, I know, but I tell you, while we're bashing the broadcast, okay, I tried to refrain from that. But
that was a great comment. That was great.
No, I love that. But while you guys are at it, listen, I love DAZN. I love the whole concept of DAZN. I can't stand those two guys that it's like Barack and whoever the other one. Come on, they don't know boxing. It makes me sick to see that. The Zone boxing show with them. Listen, they don't know the sport. Where they came from, I don't know. You know, I mean, I just don't know. And they kept going back to them and promoting that. I mean, I get it, but come on, man. Get the zone deserves true boxing people involved with it. And for the most part, they have it on some of the when Brian Kenny's on the broadcast, and I actually think Sergio Mora does a great job. Yeah, you know, I mean, they have a good A team tonight. Clearly, was the B team.
And Paul Smith, when Paul Smith is on the broadcast, Paul Smith is pretty good too.
But anyway, hey guys, we got to run. For everybody watching and listening, thanks for joining us tonight.
I'm gonna feed the kiddies.
Yeah, you better. You better. You know, thanks for joining us tonight, and we look forward to next week. All right. In the meantime, tune in, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.